MedBix Webcast is a new kind of healthcare media channel to break the silo mentality and foster interdisciplinary thinking. Our mission is to fill that gap and to create a curiosity through different lenses, tapping the passion that guided the historical figures in medicine and bringing present-day groundbreaking research to the front lines. We interview physicians and leaders in the industry about present-day healthcare challenges on our live programming. Welcome to the MedBix Webcast. This is Ramana Annamraju, the host of the MedBix. No, I'm not Albert Einstein, but I'm pretty good. So today we have a very interesting topic and interesting guest. We have a guest with a lot of certifications. We're going to interview him about the wound care. 40 million people suffering the wound care is they say that is an unprecedented way. Ulcer wounds are growing around the world. 40 million people are having ulcer wounds. One way, they are ulcer wound, diabetic wounds, pressure wounds, trauma wounds, kind of several classifications of the wounds. I don't even know what those are all classifications, but it is playing a very important role in the field of medicine, because now wound care is itself become a special field itself. Our coming guest, Dr. Ravi Kamepalli, is a board certified in infectious disease doctor and wound care specialist, and then is also a lot of certifications in obesity, metabolic syndrome. We can talk about anything you can imagine. He has extensive knowledge in all those areas. It would be a great. I'm going to welcome Dr. Kamepalli. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
So, what is the reason? Tell me some of your background. If I missed anything of your background, did I miss anything? Or
No, I'm a basic doctor. I'm an infectious disease doctor who happens to look at healing from wound care and metabolic health metrics. And I just got interested in obesity medicine because of my personal journey, and ended up trying to marry the care delivery process to metabolic health and wound care for my infectious disease patients.
So I wanted to ask you why I just was reading about it. It is growing rate in the wound care. Wound is there's something is going on in the wound where the people are getting inflicted with a lot of wounds and they're not healing proper. What do you think of that? Is a big difference between the old days and now. It's something that is wound care is be a persistent problem.
So basically, diseases in 2009, something important happened where WHO kind of came up with non-communicable diseases taking over communicable diseases as an important cause of morbidity and mortality. So that means that as of 2009, the infectious disease as a cause of morbidity and mortality has been overtaken by non-communicable disease. Now, non-communicable diseases causing infectious disease and all those are a huge problem. Say people with diabetes, hypertension, metabolic syndrome, which involves increased waist circumference and high triglycerides, low HDL, and elevated sugars and blood pressure, and increased waist circumference. If you have 3 out of 5, you have metabolic syndrome. So the idea is that when complications are caused by non-communicable diseases, the outcomes are bad. So that adds to the problem, because infections by themselves happen in people who are immunocompromised, and when complexity of that is added with metabolic changes that happen in a host, then the outcomes are bad.
So you're saying the wound care is causing by the wounds are causing by the wound diseases are causing by non-communicable diseases, non-infectious diseases are causing like diabetic ulcer wounds, for example. That is a cause. These are the things are a major cause for the infectious diseases, that non-communicable diseases.
So let's think about this. So I will mention 5 to 8 diseases, and I want to know what is the common cause for all this: diabetes mellitus type 2, hypertension, dyslipidemia, that means cholesterol problems, coronary artery disease, fatty liver, cancer, dementia, and PCOS. What do you think is the commonality in most of these chronic diseases?
They're non-infectious, they're not non-communicable diseases, right?
Yeah, but the commonality in that, in all these, is one thing called mitochondrial dysfunction. So, so by that, what I mean to tell you is that when you are having problems like all these multiple diseases that are specialized as silos in healthcare, so you as a podcast want to bring in this siloed healthcare and connect them. So what I'm showing you is here, these all these non-communicable diseases have one thing very common called mitochondrial dysfunction. So when there is that mitochondrial dysfunction, whatever you do,
So
if you don't,
mitochondria is the power generators of the cell, right? It
yeah,
just produces, it gives the power to the energy to the cell to function, to make the functional.
yeah, in fact, mitochondria, most of the mitochondria that we get from our mothers. And obviously, as we age, the mitochondrial mechanisms go bad, and that release that are realized as multiple metabolic health problems, including all those I mentioned earlier.
So what are the advances? What are the things? How do you treat the? What are the common wounds that you face every day in general in the practice in primary care practice or say primary care practice? What kind of things particularly related to wounds they see?
So basically, most of the common bread and butter wound care issues that I see are diabetic foot infections and vascular, arterial, like when people develop peripheral vascular disease, they have vascular wounds, and also something called as venous ulcers. And obviously, I'm an infectious disease doctor with cellulitis, and obviously trauma wounds, surgical wounds. And one of the major problem that I see is called as decubitus ulcers. As people are aging and people are ending up in the hospital, they end up having bed sores, and decubitus ulcer is a huge thing, and that is contributed because of malnutrition, which is another huge problem.
So, how do you treat and what are the process of diagnosis and the treatment? You can diagnosis, you can see the wounds itself, right? And then, is there any other mechanism you test the wound structures, besides that, besides looking at it? Is there any
No.
other testing mechanisms are there to understand the wounds?
So basically, when there is wounds, when you see any wounds, uh, obviously you know either it is diabetic infection, venous infection, arterial wound. But the issue is these wounds tend to present with poor wound healing problems, including the extracellular matrix, that is the scaffolding that helps wound healing, is not good. Or when there is bad bioburden, that is when there is bacterial biofilm that forms on the wound bed, or there could be chemical imbalances, and there could be wound hypoxia, that is low oxygen in the wound, and obviously other issues including malnutrition and pressure will contribute to the non-healing. And
Dr.
in
Kampali, I'm
fact,
asking, what are the testing mechanisms you have? Only you could just visible by doing the other studies, other tests,
no.
but visible. There is no other particular testing available for the wound testing. They
So
not only the
basically,
size and the shape and then what you see on do you have any other test available?
we do tissue cultures on the wound to see if it is infected. Okay,
Okay.
and also we there is a quantitative measurement of wound bacterial biofilm that is there, that's available. But Obviously, in the wound healing process, there is something called as debridement, which is removing the dead tissue, and exudate, the drainage management and infection control. So to test the wounds, obviously, if depending upon the location of the wound, so a patient has a lower extremity ulcer, we need to make sure that we test them for blood circulation, like peripheral vascular disease. So all my patients who come with lower extremity wounds get vascular testing. There is non-invasive vascular testing. There is another testing called arterial Doppler, and there is like topical oxygen testing, and obviously infection and uh, trending is very important in wound healing, how the path of healing is going on.
Okay. So, what are the usual treatment protocols that you use for to treat the wounds? Um,
So basically, treatment protocols is standard, but problem happens with wound care is every wound is so unique. Every person is unique, so every wound is unique. So the standard methods are five things, like I just told you: debridement, exudate. Debridement means taking off the dead tissue. So the wound bed has a lot of biofilm, the slime that like forms on a fish tank. So on the bottom of a fish tank, there is slime that forms. So you have to clean up the fish tank. The same way the wound bed has that biofilm, so that has to be cleaned out. That's called debridement. Exudate management is means that drainage control, depending upon the drainage. If it is dry, you moisten it. If it is wet, you dry it. And then infection control, if there is how bad is the infection. So these are the three main things. But then you assess for nutrition, and you assess for pressure.
I was reading somewhere, Dr. Kamepalli. So, senescent cells, for example, are the cause of the getting old. The aging process. Senescent cells play a very important role. And also, I understand now, senescent cells have a. But one of the reasons is if you take it out, the senescent cells, they are very useful in the wound care. Could you please explain that a little bit more on that one?
So yeah, simple. Think about it. If somebody has a cut on a hand,
What
then
are the senescent cells? Before that, you can explain a
so
little bit about it.
basically, we'll get to that. So senescence is where it's nothing but aged cells. So yeah, when you have the injury happening initially, the clotting happens. Okay, that's the first step for any healing. So when there is clotting happening, that means your platelets come. So the new cells come to that site, release some growth factors, and attract the stem cells to come to that site and try to heal the wound. Okay, so but in the healing process is there is something called as inflammatory process, and multiple white cells come. Then the fibroblasts, which is like the cells, the stem cells turn into fibroblasts, and these fibroblasts create something called as collagen, and then try to heal it. Now when this happens, the cells, then these fibroblasts become aged. As it ages, it does not produce more collagen. So the wound, the then you take off the wound, you clean out the dead stuff, so you create a new wound every time. So it feels like you're creating more problem, but it is not. It's That's why that's called debridement. So you take off the senescent cells, so and then you create good blood into the tissue, so that then more healing cells come. So that's why they have done studies showing that in a diabetic foot wound, if you don't heal the wound by 50% in 4 weeks, then they need to use additional adjuvant therapies to help heal it faster. So a diabetic foot wound, if done right, has to heal by 4 weeks. That means if it doesn't heal 50% in it has diabetic wound, it has to heal by 12 weeks. And if it doesn't heal 50% by 4 weeks, then you add additional therapies. There's additional skin substitutes and different grafts that are used for that.
So people don't have, sometimes they don't have enough senescent cells, or they have some deficiency of the senescent cells are there, or is
The
it possible?
senescent cells senescent cells are bad. So senescence is aging. So you take off the senescent cells, and then you get good cells into the wound bed.
They
Now,
also can cause cancers, right? Senescent cells. If you
obviously, any chronic wound can turn into a cancer. Obviously, you have to understand that cancer and um, cancer and wound care are on either spectrum of healing. So here you have too much growth in cancer. Here you don't have too much growth. So inflammation is what connects both of them. And as you know, there's a lot of discussion in cancer about infection of the cancer. So cancer has a lot of inflammation, and wound has a lot of inflammation. So the mechanism and these both are basically the same thing at either ends of the spectrum. So we have to move them towards the middle, and then healing will happen.
So, what are the now you gave us some kind of a treatment protocols. So, I heard some, I interviewed somebody else here recently about the ETS wound care. The use of boron derivatives. They're very wonder kind of drugs, a wonder kind of material compound elements that they're doing a great job in the wound treatment. Have you heard about that, Dr. Kamepalli?
Basically, no. And there's multiple techniques that are being used. Basically, it was thought that there is boron promotes some streptozocin induced diabetic healing, and I really did not deep dive into that. Okay. Basically, it is supposed to help with inducing wound healing via promoting something called as streptozocin, and I've not taken a deeper dive into that. I'll look into that more.
So what are the so if a wound patient comes in there, what do you do? What is the case study? Usually, you go through a process. Just run through a quick process for them. If a primary care physician refers you a wound patient, what do you do with them?
No, basically simple. Most of the wound, we look at it and try to figure out what is the source of the problem, what is the cause of the problem. Obviously, I think about infection, I think about metabolic, then here in the middle, wounds. So if it is a foot ulcer, then I just have to make sure that number one, is it what stage it is, whether it is Wagner grading, and Wagner grade is one of the grading things that we do. And obviously, we also check for whether there is infection and cellulitis, and also whether there is good blood supply. And once there is no good blood supply, we have to be careful with cleaning out the wound bed, and obviously establishing good blood supply, starting the patient on right antibiotic therapy. And if there is different kinds of infection, if there is dead tissue, you remove the dead tissue. So like I said, debridement and management of infection and exudate management is key. And then use the local antimicrobial dressings. There is something called as hypochlorous acid that I use, and also local silver dressings that are there. That is for a diabetic foot ulcer. So you assess them like you have to keep an eye on those wounds to heal. And obviously you need to make sure their underlying problems, including nutrition with diabetes control. That is, diabetes control is sugar control, number one, but also we have to understand it is insulin control, which is what most doctors don't pay attention to. So we control sugars, but forget that it is insulin toxicity that leads to hyperglycemia. So that's where I kind of show the difference. Because of my understanding of the metabolic side of it, I focus and try to look and teach the patients to eat differently. And then I use like glucose monitoring, continuous glucose monitoring, and food tracking. So I give them different options for that. So that's where I bring in my metabolic understanding to the nutrition side.
So that's you have a certification in the obesity medicine. So before I presented my topic, I wanted to ask you, what is the connection between the obesity and the wounds and the infections? Can you explain a little bit on that one?
So basically, for metabolic injury to happen, obviously um, uh, if you think about a patient who has diabetes, people look at diabetes and say it is a sugar problem. Yes, it is a sugar problem, but what is really happening is that when we eat carbohydrates, it increases the any carbohydrate converts to sugar, and when the sugar is in the blood, it increases the insulin and converts the carbohydrate, the sugar, into fat. So you become a fat storing person, but you have only certain capacity. And when that capacity is reached to the max, you become diabetic. So here is a problem with becoming a diabetic where blood sugars are high. Anytime the blood sugar is going more than 140, your white cells are not working right. When it's more than 180, your white cells don't work. So then your system is inflamed. So inflammation is a cause for everything in chronic disease. So the mitochondrial function goes bad when there is inflammation. It leads to all the metabolic problems. So anytime anybody has uh, inflammation, which diabetes and obesity are inflammatory conditions. So in this scenario, um, infections are worse, so outcomes are worse. So that is where the real connection is between what I call it a whole person approach versus a whole in the person approach.
So when I get back, I will ask you your website and where they can reach you. But they talking about I'm going to present that topic is similar to as you mentioned, the one end of the spectrum is the wound care, other end of the spectrum is the cancer. We'll talk about I'm going to present something about cancer. Both of us can watch, and then I'll ask you come back and ask you what is your just a minute. Yeah, just both of us can watch. Yes. So this is the wound I'm going to talk about. As you mentioned, the wound care is the once a wound is or one other end of the spectrum is the cancer. You said, no, let us talk about the cancer. So the most beautiful equation in medicine. It's a very strange combination that I'm going to show you connection between the universe and the cancers that I'm going to mention. When the Big Bang was born, the universe was born. Big Bang, the universe began with the equal amounts of matter and antimatter. That means I will tell you that equal amounts. The followed the Einstein's principle. Einstein discovered the principle. Is not didn't follow. The universe did not follow, but that the universe started with the equal amounts of matter and antimatter. That that caused that was the beginning of the universe. But what happened was, so what is the antimatter? It's like an evil twin. It is exactly, you don't want to meet them. If you meet them evil twin, it is nothing but destruction. Is the energy is a blow up, nothing else. So it is a matter that would not contain. If you matter and antimatter get together, it's a big problem. In fact, Dr. Kampali, if you can put on the mute your button, that would be good. Okay. So then it is this is antimatter and antimatter. They should not be. It's like evil twins. You don't want to meet them. If you find them evil twin, avoid them. That is the key. So, but anyway, what is the antimatter? Is a matter is for example, a hydrogen atom. I'm going to explain to you. Hydrogen atom is a proton in the middle, and the electron and the proton is a positive charge, and then heavy mass, and then the electron is a negatively charged moving around. That is at least a graphical picture, just a basic picture I'm giving it to you right now. It's not the exact picture of how the atoms and how the electrons do, but let us think about that. So proton is in the middle in the nucleus, and the electron is surrounded by electron is moves around the nucleus, the proton. In the antimatter, the proton is negatively charged. It is inside the same mass, but is negatively charged in the middle, and the electron is a positively charged. It goes around the antiproton. That's the antimatter. So exactly complementary. If you see that, they're exactly opposites of the charge wise. They're exactly opposite. Mass and everything else is same. That is an antimatter. So the bananas emit one positron, which is the positron that you saw. The electron, opposite of electron, it emits every 75 minutes. It emits one positron. with people to potassium 40 is a radioisotope. It emits the one positron every 75 minutes. Our body, for example, we have a 250 positrons we do per every hour. 200 of them we do every hour. We release the positron. So we produce antimatter, in fact. So, but they're not that enough to kill us. That's very small. So antimatter is the most expensive one. If you 1 gram of antimatter is $65 trillion. Think about that. CERN, which is the Hadron Collider in the Sweden, that they produced the very small amount of antimatter. They kept it for 17 minutes. That's the longest. And they transported 4 kilometers. In fact, that's eventually they're thinking about is a fuel for interstellar travel. If you want to go to Mars, if you're going to go to another galaxy, or in the future, that is what we need. We need the fuel of the antimatter is the fuel, the best fuel we can get. So his name is Paul Adrian Maurice Dirac, is longer than my last name. He was born in Bristol, England. Just hold on to the thought of the positron. I'm going to explain to you how is it related to Paul Adrian Maurice Dirac, his name. He was born in 1902 in Bristol, England. He was a very interesting character. He doesn't talk much. He said that he talks one word per 1 hour. That's what he said. But he's a brilliant man. No one ever saw. He thought in his mind an equation that it just changed the world of medicine, world of everything. I will explain you why it changed the world of medicine. It is called a Dirac equation. He was 26 years old. He's at the same age as Albert Einstein, gave the theories of relativity and general relativity, E is equal to mc square and all those things. He at the same age, Paul Dirac gave the beautiful equation is called Dirac equation. Dirac equation is I don't want to go into the details of the Dirac equation, but it's a quantum field theory that is something with the quantum physics, is the beginning of the quantum physics. So mother of all sciences is physics, whether you believe it or not. Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, they all went to physics school. They studied physics quite a bit. So remember that, physics is the mother of all sciences. So he found a Dirac equation. It's a science of fermions and bosons. That equation was, nobody thought about the antimatter. When he was thinking about antimatter, nobody believed in it. They made jokes of him. But I tell you, he was also involved in the Sachendranath Bose, is another Indian physicist, that when the science of fermions of electrons and the bosons, or that Higgs boson he saw, these are the kind of mathematical expressions, the particles that they describe, fermions and bosons of the spin, basically related to spin. But doesn't matter, you don't need to remember. Fermions is when you fall from a tree, it gets hot because there is a rule of fermions. In the rule, there is no two electrons can be in the same place. So the electrons on the earth violently reject the body's electrons. That's why you feel, not the gravity is not the one who is hurting you. Electromagnetic, that is the quantum physics, that the fermion rule, Pauli exclusion principle, is hurting you. That's where you get hurt. That's where you get wounds also. Bosons are different. They can be in the same place. They're a woman. They can get together. They have fun and all those things. That is a boson. Boson Higgs. He gave the mathematics. Sachendranath Bose gave a mathematics for that. It's called a Bose-Einstein statistics. I did a show on that one. But that is, so no one thought about fermion. Paul Dirac no one thought about this. He imagined there is a antimatter exists. No one believed in it. They know there is not even a thought of the antimatter at the time. So people who saw his papers, they said he's a kind of a atheist guy. So they said that they used to talk about him is that there is no God. Dirac has his prophet. That's what they say. They said about, I'm a trolling over Dirac. This balancing on the dizzying path between the genius and the madness is awful. Is a genius, and a kind of a madness is giving equations. Is unbelievable insights into the nature itself. So what he did was, the next one is, that is in 1932, it came a proof. And the Carl Anderson from Caltech, saw the first time the existence, the proof of the existence of antimatter, electron going on the opposite direction and the positron going in the opposite direction. They are exactly same mass. And the Wilson chamber, there's a cloud chamber, they saw the exact antimatter first time. Even the Carl Anderson won the Nobel Prize. And also, so this is the first existence of antimatter was envisioned in the Caltech right here in California. Then, that is what is the antimatter? That's I wanted to give you a description through M.C. Escher. Physicists and mathematicians love M.C. Escher drawings, because if you see, I don't know whether you can see that or not, on the left side of the picture, there is a dolphins walking. They see, either you see black dolphins or you see white dolphins. You don't see both of them. Sometimes it's hard to see both of them same time. But there are both of them there. There are black dolphins, there are white dolphins. You see them there. But if you change the color on the right side, you put the black dolphin, the white color, white dolphin, black color. That is it changed, but exactly should be the same number of fish. They look exactly the same, but they don't. The picture itself doesn't look same. So this is called strangeness of the violation of the original. It is not an original picture anymore. M.C. Escher captured that beautiful idea. So that is actually in this, like a saying that subject in the mirror, and the object in the mirror is a different from subject. So they're violated. They're not the same people. If you look at the mirror, the subject in the mirror, the object in the mirror is different than a subject. It's scary, but it's like what it is. That's what he found out is Paul Dirac found the antimatter. In fact, they're all same, matter and antimatter. It's called a charge parity violation. These are the three Japanese scientists won the Nobel Prize to confirm that there is a possibility that if you look at the mirror, symmetry, the broken symmetry, you can see the difference there. Sometimes they look different when you change the parity, when you change the charge. So when you change the colors of the dolphins from one to the black to the white to the black, then is entirely the picture itself, the integrity of the picture is changed. So that is what they found out in the mathematics and physics, and they won these three Japanese scientists won the Nobel Prize, and all of them won the Nobel Prize for that. Dirac himself won the Nobel Prize in 1933 for his equation, physics of the antimatter he found out. Then we didn't know until that what is the advantage of the positron antimatter. So that's where I'm going to show you about the cancer. Cancer is number one enemy. He's talking about Dr. Kamepalli is talking about it. There is a growing unprecedented rate in the cancer. Even is afflicting a lot of young people nowadays. We have to watch out. Something is seriously wrong with our system. The cancer is growing in a large numbers. So how do you detect the cancer? The gold standard is a positron emission tomography. That's the only way you can detect it. There's a gold standard to detect cancer. You can do some medical testing or genetic testing and all those things. But really to see the cancer is a positron emission tomography. Is the machine looks like a CT scan, MRI, but that is a different one. Is a positron emission tomography. A lot of cancer specialists understand this. That's the only way you can do it. Is a gold standard to detect cancer. Not only it does the detection, it does the detection, staging, what stage it is in there, evaluating the treatment response, how it is responding to the treatment. Is it shrinking this tumor or expanding the tumor? So you can measure the size and all the structural problem of that. Planning of radiation therapy, for example, where exactly tumor is located? How do you attack them? These are all you have to do through PET-CT, PET scanner. PET positron emission tomography is the real. What is a positron? What is a positron? I'm going to talk about that. Is a PET-CT. There's a positron is the beginning word. First word is a positron. Remember that. What they do is a radioactive sugar. They inject a radioactive sugar, radio tracer to the patient. That's what they do. So what is a radioactive sugar? It is a glucose, but it is exactly glucose. What it is it tricks the body but you put the radio tracer, you have the fluorine atom, the fluorine fluorodeoxy, sorry, fluorodeoxyglucose. That's why I did not become a chemist, So FDG, short term is FDG. The glucose and FDG are the exactly same, chemically same properties. You can't tell the difference. So body thinks it's a glucose. So if you inject the FDG, body thinks it's a glucose. So the cancer cells attacks the glucose, and you can see large number of FDG goes the radio tracers. What does the radio do? It emits the waves, right? Radio waves. So FDG is a radio tracer. Fluorine atom is the right hand side FDG radio tracer. Half life. What is half life? Means half life is 2 hours. That means within 2 hours, the amount of the substance you have, the FDG, it goes into half. Half of the atoms decay. That's what they call half life in the nuclear physics. And the half life is half of the atom, because we don't know which ones to go decay. That's why we just we give an aggregated answer. That's half of the amount will be gone in 2 hours in the FDG. Same thing, rubidium in 75 seconds. That's another radio tracer they use in the cardiac viability. There's a radio rubidium 82. That's all. The half-life is 75 seconds. That is a challenge itself, right? So in the world, other countries, the India and China and the poor Africa, is that this half-life is a problem. So PET-CT is the biggest to detecting cancer. You need a PET-CT, but PET-CT's problem is if you need a contrast like those things that you don't have, you cannot get them. So because you need a particle accelerators. That's what's invented in the Los Alamos laboratories. But particle accelerators are the key to get these radioisotopes. But so actually you can measure up unique. So I can give you, we have United States 150 cyclotrons, particle accelerators that produce the radioisotopes that you can distribute the PET-CT scanners, PET scanners. In China, 130, there are quite 1.5 billion people in China. Then 130, we have 300 million people. We have 150. In India, just 19. Unbelievably small number the particle accelerators are. It's a good measure of the inequities of health. The cancer is going everywhere. So to detect cancer is a big problem. So we don't have enough equipment, enough radio sources that can detect the cancer. That's why the inequities of health, and particularly in the cancer detection, is a big challenge in the poor countries. In Africa, you can count maybe 10 of them in entire Africa, except South Africa. So you can do in hot lab. It's called hot lab. I used to run the PET-CT scanner. I'm not a technician, but I administer the PET-CT scanners. Radioisotopes, they store, prepare, and deliver in the hot lab. It is a thick, it's a lead-based thick, because people who operate these radioisotopes has to be very, very well protected. It is a Nuclear Regulatory Commission is involved, NRC, FDA is involved, state, federal, local, county. There are so many laws that govern these PET-CT scanners. So there's a lot of regulations out there. In India and other countries, they think it's people collect these things and use as a deadly weapon. There's a nuclear weapon. That's what they think in some cases. So there's a lot of regulatory industry. Well, so physics of the proton is when the nucleus, what happens is when you inject this FDG inside the body, so that is a positron travel in tissue. What is the positron? It emits the positron. So that the FDG emits the positron, immediately interacts with the electron in our body, in the tissue, and then emits the 2 gamma photons. That's what it is. The physics is the conservation of momentum. It is a law of conservation of momentum. It's a fundamental universal principle. It follows the universal principle conservation. The 2 photons go and directly exactly opposite. That's a key. The key to that, to the positron PET scanner, is the 2 photons going exactly opposite, on the opposite direction. With the 180 degrees, they go opposite direction to maintain the conservation of momentum. So electromagnetic spectrum, gamma photons are very high energy. On the right hand side, you see all the way the microwave, radio waves are the weak weak waves that you see on the left side, and the right side you see the gamma waves. Gamma waves they use to detect or kill. Gamma knife to use it to treat cancers. You need these are the part of the electromagnetic spectrum. Means what they're all photons waving in a different frequencies. That's all. Gamma photon higher frequency, microwave is the gamma photon is a lower frequency. That's all the difference. Is the frequency, the number of frequencies that makes difference. So the photons, the positron emission tomography, conservation of momentum, the photons go, they have a detectors around that gantry that you see the gantry, the brain is in the middle. So when you inject the positron emission, the FDG, it emits the gamma photon, it goes exactly opposite directions. You can detect. So attenuation, by using attenuation, you can detect where is the exact what is going on with the functional. You can see the movie of the cancer, what it's doing, how it is consuming this FDG sugar. So not only you can see the structure of it, you can see the function of it, the actual movie of the cancer in action. So you can see, for example, you can see the dark spots here. The PET scanner is a very high resolution, high function. The temporal functionality. It's a focus on functionality of the cancer. The movie of the cancer, how it's affecting, how it's acting upon. It is a low resolution. Structurally, it has a low resolution. The structural means you don't know where is exactly and how it looks like, but it tells you the story of how it is functioning. So PET scanner gives you functionality of the cancers and tumor. So that's why they use a PET CT combination, because you need a structural and functional. Both of them are important. So the PET CT, it gives you functionality of the cancer, and the CT is the exact location and gives you the exact location of the shape and location of the cancer. That's why they use a combination of PET CT. So the CT gives you size and shape and location, and the PET gives you functionality, how bad it is or how it is functioning. That gives you the cancer. So you give the complete picture of the movie of the cancer you get it. PET versus SPECT. There's a SPECT cameras, we use it sometimes. SPECT is single photon emission tomography, computer tomography. You can get single. That is a very low resolution gamma photon. One gamma photon goes there. It's a very low resolution. It gives you some information, but PET is definitely much better with the positron. So the key for this PET is the positron. The positron gives you the energy. So from the tumor, if the two gamma photons go high energy gamma photons, we can detect and see the exact movie. So there is nobody can match that positron's action. Positron is the one who created that movie. In the breast cancer, you see the calcifications and everything you can see in PET CT scan is a very well documented through the process. PET CT hot viability, they use the rubidium. I used to work on with the rubidium accelerator. This is the rubidium. It's a $30,000 a month, sir. It's not cheap. You can check the hot viability. Is a much better. Rubidium is a better source for the rubidium to mention, because some of the heart muscles are dead muscles. So you want to see the functionality of the heart, the congestive heart failure, particularly sodium potassium pathways. You want to see more clearly. That you need to have rubidium is a much works better. But the rubidium, remember that the reason you need an accelerator $30,000 per month, because you cannot deliver. At least we have 2 hours for the FDG. You don't have 75 seconds, so you need to have right there in the next to the PET CT. So that's why you can rent it $30,000 a month per month for this rubidium generator. So PET CT gives you hearing loss, dementia. The Medicare gave $100 million to study, large study they did for the Alzheimer's, particularly to study Alzheimer's, because it's one of the onslaught of neurological diseases coming up in the older people now. So positron emission tomography, PET CT, there's PET MRI is coming up. So these are all much more. It can give you much more clear structural positions of the tumor and everything. So there's a lot of advances going on in the positron. So there is wearable MRI is coming up. This is a friend, Mary Jepson from Silicon Valley. She's giving a headband for, you don't need a big gantry. You can find a MRI with a headband. PET Explorer, UC Davis has a PET Explorer complete body. It does that. It is a complete body PET scanner. It can detect all the cancers, everything, anywhere you have. It can rip apart. It can see all the bright spots, metastasis. You can see that. You can detect cancer 10 times much more powerful. It is in the UC Davis. That's a PET Explorer is called. It's entire body. Siemens has a similar situation, high resolution research tomography dedicated to brain scanner. Siemens HRRT PET scanner they have. They're coming up. These are all in the research still. Stanford as a PetNet is an AI-based system. It takes the feed the images there. What they do is it detects 92% accuracy, which is higher than traditional methods of diagnosis. The diagnosis in the human through humans and other ways is much less. So they say that the artificial intelligence can help to detect the cancer. If they see the images, 92% is called PetNet. It's called in Stanford. It's the Center for Artificial Intelligence in Medicine and Imaging. That's a very interesting field itself. Is a department. So they're doing this kind of work. So all this started with one of the genius of this one is Paul Dirac. Is in Solvay conference. They're all scientists in 1930s. They get together in Solvay. That was classic picture in physics. Is in the middle somewhere that I put a red mark. That's where the Paul Dirac was there. He was Albert Einstein is in the middle. So this is one of the most significant moment in the history. That one of the things he proposed about the quantum physics and this kind of ideas, quantum field theory of the positron and all those things proposed here. And it is really mind-boggling. This man imagined these kind of things from his mind and came up with this equation. So that's a great thing about physics. You can come up with equations first, and then you see the reality and the actual practicality you see years from now. So Paul Dirac moved to Tallahassee, Florida. He's from British England. He was offered a job in Princeton where Albert Einstein is there. Albert Einstein was there, but he didn't take it. His daughter was in Tallahassee. So he moved to Tallahassee as a position, he gave a final lecture. He died very quietly in the 1984. He died. There is a bust in the University of Tallahassee, Florida. There's a bust of the Paul Dirac bust. So you can, is a very quietly died. Nobody knows. Is one of the cancer patients woke him. This man, how the positron works. He gave the mathematical equations for that positron. He's a genius. A man we never know, nobody knows. He's so quiet. He gave the final lecture in 1984 and he died. But quietly died. So they call him in the physics world, we know that, is the Mozart of science. His equation was is a tombstone, is a Dirac equation which gave the rise to the positron. Antimatter was inscribed on his tombstone. I made it this one, the most beautiful equation in medicine. I would say that's what I call it. That is my giving. So I create this. Thank you for watching. You can buy the t-shirts on my Amazon, on my website, dailywearformedicine.com. Go and buy it. And really, we owe him, this remarkable man. Let me bring Dr. Kamepalli to these things. And so I gave a brief description of the cancer detection, Dr. Kamepalli.
So, yeah, I was looking at it and was trying to understand. I mean, like obviously, we understand about PET scan in oncology. When we do PET scans on people, it detects the glucose at the site of the cancer metabolism. So we have to understand that glucose is what is liked by cancer. So, say in wound care, there is insulin hyper secretion. Like in hyperinsulinemia, you have diabetes. In obesity, you have hyperinsulinemia. In inflammation, you have hyperinsulinemia. In cancer, you have hyperinsulinemia. The unifying factor for all these chronic diseases
Sugar.
and cancer is something called as hyperinsulinemia. That is, body secreting insulin as a response to the food that you eat. So we need insulin, no doubt. We need insulin. Without insulin, we become type 1 diabetic and we will not survive as human race. But too much stimulation by uh, foods that are eaten now with processed foods and eating 6 times a day and uh, eating without control because we have all become food addicts. So the issue is we have to understand that healthcare is messed up not because of anything else but by us. So metabolic health matters in many things in healthcare, but population health, while it is useful in developing theories, it has personal health. All medicine happens at a personal level. So one has to understand that without without implementing a personalized nutritional approach, all the things that we do in medicine are going to be useless.
You're involved with the fruit street, some kind of a it's a nutritional mechanism. Tell us a little bit about that, Doctor.
No, basically, it is nothing but a telemedicine application, and basically the idea is to try to understand that uh, diabetes is preceded by a condition called as pre-diabetes, when the hemoglobin A1C is between 5.7 to 6.5. So it takes 10 years before the pre-diabetes converts into diabetes. So during this time, people have hyperinsulinemia. So the obviously in patients who lose around 5% of body weight, then their pre-diabetes can improve. Or in case of another, looking at another thing, 15 kilograms of weight loss can even put diabetes into remission. So
Oh,
this is a theory behind understanding that
15
diabetes,
kilograms of what? 15 kilograms of what, sir?
50 kilograms of body weight.
Body weight. Okay.
Yeah. So
How
basically,
many pounds in American we are?
it's multiplied by 2.2.
Okay.
15 into 2.2, so 30 pounds or something like that. So basically, what it just comes down to is improving weight, but also what I say is improving fat mass is more important. So reducing one's fat mass reduces the inflammation. So the unifying factor between cancer and wounds, I would say, is insulin. So
Interesting.
if you have heard about cancer and Warburg effect, then that's a whole another discussion. So you have to understand that in the Warburg effect is use of sugar as a fuel for cancer, even in aerobic condition. So
Yesterday there was an article in CNN headlines. Is the sugar is the biggest culprit of all the diseases? It says so. It is a why we have a we need. Is it the medical community has to be take a major role in describing how this food industry is working? They're not doing an average. They're not doing a great job in advocating that process. So do you
so
now we are talking about food is important process for this. So what do you suggest, Dr. Kamepalli?
So I mean, like, see, I'm a physician, graduated in '95. So it took me until 2015 of being a physician and getting obese to understand that I was on a wrong path. So the teaching is number one wrong. Number two, obviously, I did not know that my metabolic health is in doldrums. So it took a family tragedy for me to change my thinking and my understanding, and my getting into metabolic health, investing in this startup company, and trying to become board certified in obesity medicine changed not just me, but also my approach to my patients with infections. So the journey that I went through is making me talk like this. But now, not many people go through the journey. We have been given a siloed medicine. So in this siloed medicine, a cardiologist does cardiology stuff, a kidney doctor does kidney stuff, a liver doctor does liver stuff, and nobody is connecting and building a bridge between those silos. So that's what I'm working on in my next kind of iteration of life. I'm trying to build this silo to connect this knowledge bank, so that the next physician would not have to wait 20 years after graduating to understand that metabolic health is a problem. That has to be a part of the training.
Check the website at www.nobadbugs.com. Dr. Ravi Kamepalli is a beautiful site. You all should go. Thank you. It's truly an honor to talk with you, sir. It is an amazing, educational, inspirational, and we learned a lot quite from you. Thank you so much for joining with us.
Thank you very much. Good night.
We are retelling their stories through our patented designs that can be worn on scrubs, t-shirts, printed on conference bags, and endless other promotional materials. Daily Wear for Medicine is the first ever of its kind to create curiosity in medicine through visual art. We at MedBricks are celebrating unsung heroes of the past who made enormous contributions to the field of medicine through our unique campaign called Daily Wear for Medicine. You can wear it, carry it, and give it